Hey, everybody, it's Mark Schultz here with Larry Little. Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Hey, Mark. Good to be with you again this morning. It's a fantastic morning.
Yeah, great. We are here with another edition of Recovery in Aviation. It's a great morning, Larry. Where in the world are you?
Hey, Mark. I'm in a remote part of eastern Washington, near a little town called Keller, and it's just a beautiful, sunny morning here, and it's going to be a great day. But hey,
That's
excited to talk
fantastic.
to you today. Hey, Mark, I just want to say that little video that you showed at the start, that is just really cool. I'm kind of excited to dive into this and hear more about this laser digitization.
Yeah, we are going to have a good discussion here today. We have a leader from Laser Aviation with us today, and we'll introduce him in a minute. But I wanted to tell everybody real quick is that this is actually a live broadcast, and we're going to do some live Q&A. And so go ahead and join us. And if you'd help me out by sharing this broadcast, I would really appreciate it so that more people can actually know about it and helps us to get the word out. But we are passionate about recovery in aviation, and Larry and I are focused on helping people in the industry to be successful in recovery in aviation. And one way we're doing that is by bringing to you leaders in aviation who have experience and success in doing these things. And that's what it's really all about today. So Larry, this is going to be an exciting discussion today.
Yeah, like you said, Mark, it's over the past few months we've been talking to
Yeah.
a lot of leaders who found a way not only to survive but to thrive and grow in these times, and looking forward to hearing from another example of how to take advantage of this crisis.
Yeah, as Larry said, we've been doing this for about 3 months now, and we have had such tremendous success, and people have really been excited about the information that we've been able to share, that we've decided to do a virtual summit that's a focused concentration on recovery in aviation. And that virtual conference is going to happen on August 25th, 26th, and 27th, and you're going to hear more information about it starting next week, and you'll be able to actually register for it. It's going to be a free conference where we're going to bring over 50 leaders and do interviews like this. And we're expecting to have over 10,000 people that participate. And so this is really something that's going to be exciting. And so we are passionate about recovery in aviation. And Larry and I are working together to bring this to you so that you can join in and be part of the knowledge that we're learning from recovery in aviation interviews.
Mark, really looking forward to that in 6 weeks from now. And things change almost every day in our industry. And I think we'll have some really interesting interviews. And I just want to reiterate, the format's a little different than you might have seen in other conferences. This is really kind of live, interactive interviews with professionals and leaders in aviation and how they weathered the storm, if you will. So
yeah, absolutely. And why go it alone? Why not use people in the industry and the knowledge they have as mentors to help you to be successful? And so I want to encourage you to join us in that. Hey, as we're going forward here, if you're out there, we have a lot of people that are joining us from all around the world. We always do. Just go ahead and give us a shout out in the comments, and right down below, all you do is have to put your comments right here in the live broadcast, and we actually see them. Let us know who's out there and where you are. And then when it comes time, and if you have a question, just throw your questions in there, and we're going to be able to give these questions out to our experienced CEO. So hey, without any more discussion, let's jump right in. And what I want to do is I want to introduce to you Mike Mullet, and he is the CEO of Laser Aviation. And we're really excited to have him with us today here. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. Pleasure to be here.
Mike.
Larry?
Welcome.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Hey, Mike, where are you coming to us from today?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Excellent.
Nice and hot and humid.
Yeah, I hear down in the southeast down there, it's going to be a hot day. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Mike, as we get started, I know the name of your company is Laser Aviation, all right? Can you just give the people listening right now just a quick brief? What is Laser Aviation? What is your company and what do you do?
We actually have a lot of fun. Laser Aviation does 3D laser scanning or mapping of 3D of aircraft parts and components, and then we create 3D solid models in support of engineering. And just real quick, it's kind of a neat way to, unfortunately, to social distance, because when we go out on site, we usually only have 1, 2, possibly 3 people scanning the aircraft, and then we can project it all over the world via the cloud.
All right. Well, that's really good. Hey, just for those of you who are interested is that Laser Aviation is a company which does the things which Mike just said. And we're going to give some very specific business cases as we go forward in the discussion a little bit later in the broadcast today. And so I really wanted to encourage you to hang on with us. And we're going to talk about the ways that you can increase revenue and you can cut costs through the usage of these kind of technologies and capabilities. And hey, just a quick note, we got people joining us from all around the world, and we got some people here in the US that are joining us. And hey, just keep jumping in, and if you got any questions, let us know. Hey, I want to kick us off here today between the three of us is that, we've all been in the industry for a long time. Mike, you have some experience in the Army, and then you went out and did some other things. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, and just so people kind of know who you are and what you've done?
Yeah, I usually call people up and say, hey, you got a minute to talk to a crusty old crew chief door gunner from Vietnam? But I spent some time in Germany, and as a maintenance provider in the service, I saw that there was a great need for more accuracy in the industry. And as we progress through technology, the digital transformation is fitting that bill perfectly. So yeah, I kicked around a bit and got started actually in the laser scanning business through a custom stainless steel exhaust component manufacturer in Fort Lauderdale for mega yachts, and saw that this digital transformation and enhanced technical data gathering would be enhanced tremendously through laser scanning.
That's great. And so, as we kind of bring up that topic and that subject, we like to start our broadcasts out by having a little bit of discussion about what's happening in the industry right now. Okay. And in the industry right now, we're finding that, we've had some success, and we've the industry was starting to move forward, and it was looking about a month ago like things were starting to, really heat up and to start moving forward. But it looks like things might even be moving backwards a little bit. I mean, what are you seeing out there in the industry right now as far as your business? Are you having people reaching out to you and wanting to talk to you about doing business? What's going on, right now with you?
Yes, and unfortunately, you're correct. Not as much as we'd like, and not as much as it has been. But the cargo conversions is what we see is really a mainstay. And unfortunately, as we all know, there's so many aircraft that are being parked and actually retired. So the application of laser scanning for damage and dent assessment is also still there and very viable. But also, as we helped with PIMCO here not too long ago in a cargo or a passenger combi cargo conversion, we supported them as well. So that's still, people are asking. We had a gentleman yesterday call and said he had a foreign client that was looking to buy 5 C-130s from the Air Force. And then another gentleman who has just recently got a contract from another foreign client to purchase a 747, but it needs heavy check. And so we're also talking to them about supporting their efforts throughout the heavy check.
Okay. Have you had to shift at all? I mean, since last year, it looked like aviation was really super strong and things were really going well. And then all of a sudden January hit, and, the everybody started pulling back. I mean, has your business had to shift in any way?
Well, not really. We're still standing by and ready to scan aircraft and support engineering efforts around the world. So anybody that needs help, we are absolutely available. We do have availability. So standing by.
Okay, great. Well, good. Hey, let's have a little bit of discussion about what it is that you actually do, because I'm not certain that people really understand what laser aviation really means. And so I think we got a couple of slides which talk a little bit about some of the projects that we have. The next one after this actually is just a little video. It's actually moving in the background, and here's a Citation business jet. Can you tell us about what's going on in this picture right now here at this time?
Yeah, and what's a great idea is we're actually doing a snapshot in time, if you will, a condition report, a 3D digital image report to show that there are no dents, damages. We could potentially show doublers if there are any applied to the aircraft. So it's a snapshot in time. So going forward, if there is damage to the aircraft, dent, buckle, hail damage, bird strike, we can go back in and scan those specific areas and overlay one with the other. And it'll pretty much give you a real clear image of what the deformation to the aircraft is from comparing those two scans.
Okay, what's that little box down there in front of the nose gear that's turning? What is that?
That's the actual scanner. So what we do normally when we're scanning the hull or the fuselage of the aircraft. We'll put it on a surveyor's tripod. But as you might understand, we need the whole entire aircraft. So we need to actually put it on the floor to capture the underside of the aircraft as well, and move it from position to position to capture the entire fuselage.
So that's actually a laser that's scanning the aircraft, or is it video, or what kind of technology is it?
That's actually the laser scanner itself. So it will capture a 360-degree bubble, if you will. And the only thing that it doesn't see is what it's sitting on, whether it be the floor or the tripod. So when you move it to the next position, it will backfill, if you will, those areas that it didn't pick up from where it was positioned.
Okay, so let me just clarify now. This aircraft was in for a check, and they used your scanning services to digitize the exterior surface of the aircraft to basically document it, for damages.
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And we created a full 3D solid model, or we can create a full 3D solid model from those point clouds.
Okay, interesting. All right. Hey, once you get that data and it's actually been captured, somebody asked a question here, which I'm just going to throw up on the screen real quick. And the question that's coming in from one of our viewers out there, Mark Herter, and said earlier he was from Gilbert, Arizona. He says, can you keep the data into maintenance records? Can you talk to us a little bit about how, once the data is captured, what's it's actually used for at that point in time?
It's actually a good question, and thanks, Mark. What we are proposing to do and move forward is make these 3D digital images a part of the maintenance record. So what we can then do is, if again there are doublers attached to the airframe or cracks, we can actually create hotspots in those areas and attach 2D images, photos, or documents to show what the extent of the damage is. So a virtual survey, if you will, say a client is overseas or not able to travel, we can create those images and attach them to the documents. As a matter of fact, the FAA is now starting to really embrace this, and they established back in 1964, I believe, a program called CASS, and so that there's numerous areas within that procedure or program that we could potentially infuse 3D documentation.
Yeah. Okay. And, I've been in and involved and around enough airplanes over the years that, business aircraft, we had a vendor on here a couple of weeks ago, and they had a piece of software. I think it was Blue Tail is what it was. And they have a record keeping piece of software. And one of the things that they do is they capture structural information, and they produce dent and buckle reports. And, Boeing has products in Toolbox to be able to produce dent and buckle reports. And they have a product called Air Data Stream, which also, produces dent and buckle reports. And so this seems like a perfect opportunity to be able to capture information about the aircraft and put it into the maintenance records, for, permanent record of the aircraft.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And what's funny, and what we have found is we all know that, 2 or 3 of us could go out and do the same inventory or inspection of the airplane. And what we found with hail damage, a lot of the guys and gals are reporting something that is out of spec. Well, what we do is we can come in and scan the entire aircraft. And we found that the laser scan, obviously being a lot more objective, it's found that not so many of those dents are a problem area. So it saves time, it saves money, because again, you and I know that it takes a couple of people quite a bit of time to go out and survey an entire aircraft. Where we can go out.
We all know that we have to have a business case for everything that we do. Was there any documentation of the value of doing something like this digitally? Do you have any information at all, or?
When we scanned and supported the VIP interior completion, went back a couple of weeks before it was supposed to be delivered and talked to the managing engineer, and he said we saved them about 30%. So that program was a $50 million project. We think we saved them close to $1.5 million on that project by giving it back to them in a full 3D solid image of the interior.
Yeah, that's actually great. We have some additional information about that project. So why don't we just go to one of the next slides that we have that talks a little bit about your BBJ project. So right here, I see somebody in the interior on a laptop, and they have some other kind of a device in front of them. Can you tell us what our viewers are looking at here right now?
Sure. This is actually a new Max 8, and that's a laser tracker. So the first day that we go in, and we usually take 2 days. So the first day we go in with the tracker, single beam laser that establishes the control net, if you will. So we set up our individual targets with that laser tracker, and the laptop captures each and every individual XYZ positioning of those targets. And so the next day, when we come in to do all the scans, we tie all of our scans together via that net that we've established initially.
So before we go to the next image, I just wanted to clarify, is that the first device you showed us was a scanner, which was digitizing the surface of the aircraft. And this device is a laser tracker. And this does what? Measurement, establishes control points. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. It's a single beam as opposed to the other one that will take and capture, 10 or 20 million points a second. I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, yeah, okay, yeah.
And this is just a single tracker that will establish each and every individual single point that we then use to connect and sync all the individual scan worlds together. Okay, and it reduces error throughout the entire airplane.
Yeah, so let's sort of reset again what you're doing here. I just want our viewers to understand again, is that you have this aircraft that was delivered, and it's a BBJ. So it's a Boeing business jet, a 737 BBJ, and it's going into completion. And for those that may not be familiar with the technology, going into completion means that they're going to take that bare bones interior and finish it out with a finished interior so it can be used as a private, business jet, right? And so what you're doing is you're providing support of now identifying the interior of that aircraft so that the engineers can go to work, right?
That is absolutely correct. So whether it be a VIP or VVIP interior that they're going to do, and like I said, the first one that we showed was a $50 million interior completion. But we also do a special mission aircraft also for the same purpose, that supportive engineering. So they go back in there and complete all their design work within that 3D solid model that we have created and delivered to them.
Excellent. So we have a number of other slides which we're going to go to here in a second. So why don't we go to the next one? Then I got some more questions I want to take. But the next one, I circled on this graphic you gave me. Some targets, I guess they're called. Can you tell us what's going on here? Why are those targets inside of this interior of this aircraft?
Yes, and again, we will establish the XYZ position of each one of those targets with that laser tracker. And then, like I say, the next day when we go in and do the individual scans throughout and we'll usually do 30 or 40 scans sometimes throughout the entire interior of a 737. And then we use those targets that we have already predetermined the XYZ of those targets. And then that way we can establish and create the 3D solid image to the aircraft coordinate system. So the nose comes out as the nose, and the tail, and left and right water line. It can all be established via the targets or linked via those targets.
So you're going in with that single beam laser tracker, and you're identifying coordinates through these targets and things in the aircraft, and then you're using your scanning to digitize the interior and then stitch it all together. Do I understand that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, awesome. All right. Hey, listen, we got a couple of more questions that have come in. One of them goes back to Mark. He asked another one. I had mentioned that we had another company on the program. It was Blue Tail, and they have a records documentation program. But they wanted to know if you're currently in partnership with any other companies or software providers. Have you worked up the ability to feed data, or is it difficult to feed data? I mean, can you talk to us a little bit about feeding data into other systems like CAMP or a record-keeping system or anything like that?
Yeah, it's not that difficult. It's just requiring, obviously, the software engineers to get a hold of our data and include it into, from what I understand. And like I said, I really haven't had the opportunity to work directly with them yet, but we have been reaching out to Blue Tail. Sierra Tracks is another one, and CAMP and Flight Docs. So we're talking to all of them in reference to trying to get the interest up.
Yeah, good. We had Flight Docs and ATP on our broadcast here recently, and Blue Tail and some others, and so it's good. It's good that you're reaching out to them and beginning to do that. Hey, listen, I have a good friend. I want to give a shout out to him. He's been on our broadcast before. It's Mark Christian Reichel. He's actually coming to us from the UAE. He's in Abu Dhabi, and so like I told you, we have people that come to us from all around the world. And he's saying here that this is an interesting topic, and he wants to know, how long does it take to perform a scan? How much data is generated? I know the reason Mark Christian is asking these questions is because he's an engineer and he thinks this way. Okay,
Sure.
And he wants to know how long it takes to perform follow-up scans or to identify differences. And so, can you give us a little bit of context of like how long it takes and how much data is generated, and kind of what can you do with it? Can you hit on a few of those things for us?
Absolutely, and appreciate the question. Again, we will usually go in the first day on a larger project like the 737 and set up our control net, establish all our targets, whether it's interior, exterior, or both. And then the second day we go in, and it's pretty much a full 8-hour day. But the other interesting part is that the aircraft cannot be moved or jostled, so we really need it inside the hangar and nobody else working on the aircraft at the time. If you start moving it, then the aircraft, one scan versus the other, doesn't line up properly. It's like taking a double exposure with a regular camera. Those scans will usually generate about 25 gigs of data. When we take it back in and do the post-processing, we usually disseminate and get rid of about 2/3 of the point cloud because they're unnecessary or redundant. And for every hour we scan in the field, it's about 2 hours of post-processing, as long as it's not a real complicated project. If somebody wants more detail, say down to stringers and doublers and things of that nature, it'll usually take maybe 3 or 4 hours of post-processing to get the model accurate.
Okay, but as you said just a few minutes ago, though, is that it sounds like it's a lot of work. But you said that your customer reported back to you that they saved about 30% of their time in digitizing the aircraft and the cost. But you said it's a pretty significant cost savings by going in and doing this.
Absolutely.
For the engineering standpoint. Okay, that's really great. Hey, I got another slide here, which is one of the next ones, which is part of this project that you're working on, and it shows the interior of a gear well. Why would you scan the gear well? There's an awful lot of tubing and everything going on in there. Can you talk to us about what's the value of doing something like that?
Sure, and that's absolutely the reason that we scanned it, because there is a lot going on in there. Some of the manufacturers are starting to develop 3D IPCs, illustrated parts catalogs, as opposed to the 2D part catalog that is now generally accepted. And that helps tremendously, because what you can do with those 3D IPCs is click on a specific item and it will take you to the repair service manual, the aircraft maintenance manual, tell you what the part number is, and you can also then attach additional documents in reference to what kind of tools do you need to remove and replace that component, what's the procedure to do that, safety items to be aware of. So illustrating something such as a wheel well like this, let alone anything else on the airplane, brings a lot of knowledge to somebody that may be new or may not have worked on that aircraft for a while and needs some refresher information.
Yeah, when I worked at Boeing, they were working on some different training documentation and also, maintenance manual documentation and things like that. And they were always looking for new ways to be able to digitize and show 3D, representations of things, because it certainly assisted the mechanic in trying to expedite repairs when they could more accurately identify systems and tubing and hoses and things like that. So I'm sure that that's really going to be of value to people as they continue to do more and more of that.
Yes, and as we talk about digital transformation, AR and VR, this is basically the raw material that you could potentially use for establishing programs for additional training using AR and VR. So
yeah, very
important.
Very interesting. So in the next slide, or in the next graphic that we have a picture of this scanner that you had in front of that citation up on a tripod. Can you just tell us what's going on here and why is it up on a tripod now?
Yeah, and just a slight collection. This is the BBJ, and normally this is the way we position the scanner. So again, it'll traverse 360 degrees in a full circle and capture all that data, and then by 270 degrees. So the only thing it really doesn't see is the tripod that it's sitting on. But again, as we move to the next position, we capture 3 or 4 or more targets in each position, especially from the previous scan. And then that's the way we align and sync all of our scan worlds, if you will. So it will backfill any data that was missed by this position in the second or third and consecutive scans.
Got it. So you're scanning the exterior of it. I think our next slide as well, just has it up on a lift. And so they're actually, up getting the crown of the aircraft, right, as well?
Absolutely correct. It's a little bit more difficult there because, as you might suspect and have had previous experience, those lifts are not always the stablest. So
yeah, right.
So we've really got to get everybody to be steady once that scan process starts.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And then I think we have one last picture of the interior of this conversion, and I see you got some more targets going on, and so I think that's probably just more of the same, isn't it?
That's correct. But a lot of times what we'll do, as opposed to using those tripod targets, we'll actually take and put masking tape on the fuselage where we want to place the targets, and then hot glue these magnetic, they're big washers, basically magnetic, and then put our targets in those positions to capture either via the laser tracker, and then the second day we have optical targets go into those same positions. And the nice thing is that the algorithms within the software know where to or what to look for, and they also know the geometry of those targets that we've established.
Okay, very good. Hey, Mike, let me just take a pause here for a second. Like I said, we have people watching this broadcast from all around the world, and I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody for doing that. And we've had some questions that have come in, and I just wanted to, I'm going to ask you a question that I have in my mind in a minute, but I wanted to encourage people that if you have questions, throw them out there, because you have live access to people that have been doing this for many years, and now is the time to ask your questions. So, but I wanted to ask you a question. We talked a little bit about the return on investment, and I suppose that before digital scanning, that you had to, you had to do it more of a manual process, and today the manufacturer, might have digitally generated drawings versus scans that are done. Can you tell me why it's beneficial to use a scan, or what would be an appropriate application for using a scan?
Well, as I had mentioned early on, it kind of helps with social distancing, because again, once we have that solid image created, you can share it around the world, and anybody that is participating in that project can take this image and complete their portion of it. For instance, in that BBJ, I believe some of the cabinetry was actually made in Germany. So the completion MRO will take and ship that data off to Germany, and the people in Germany can create all their cabinetry. Another application was any of the hydraulic or fuel lines are now, I believe, being made with double wall steel tubing. And so you want to make it once and fit it once. Before, they'd have to go out and try and fit something, do some rework. And so now they're made once, installed once, with little or no conflict.
That's a tremendous amount of savings to not have to go back and redo things or rework. That's amazing.
Huge.
That really is. So I could see where they could come up with a 30%, savings number. But you said your customer came up with that. That's really very interesting.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So we have a third business case that we talked about, and I think we have an image of that one. And here we talked about an obsolete landing gear part. Can you talk to us a little bit about why is this an obsolete part, and what do you do with scanning with respect to that?
Yeah, it was interesting. Avenger Aerospace up in Greenville sent this to us and said, this is a forging. There are no more forgings left. This is the only thing keeping the aircraft from being airworthy. Not sure what airplane it is, but it doesn't matter as long as we can help out. So as you can see from the image, there's some brass bushings pushed into some of those horns, and we weren't going to take the risk to bend or break those horns. And so fortunately, Avenger had the 2D drawings to go along with that. So once we created the solid model, we could actually go in there and massage it and put the actual diameter and center of all those holes in there from the 2D information we had. So very interesting, and reverse engineering, supporting any engineering, difficulty, pain point, or problem that somebody might have.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because the cost of redesign, can be significant, and so it's interesting that you'd have the ability to be able to digitize that and then produce that. Hey, I had somebody on the program last week who does 3D printing. I mean, are there parts that you would scan and then you would 3D print? I mean, how would that tie together?
Yeah, absolutely. From the data of that part that the landing gear part that you're showing now, you can actually make 2D drawings, or you can take the STL file that is generated from the solid models that we create and actually feed that to a 3D printer. And if you want, I've got something here that I've would like to ask if people know what this portion or part is and what aircraft it came from. Let me get it here where we can see it a little bit better.
Okay.
It's kind of an interesting part. It came from a World War II airplane, and wonder if anybody knows what this part might be.
That's a good question. I have no idea. It came from a World War II airplane. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
You got us
I
on
got
the
one
hook.
more for you.
What else do you got?
Yeah, I
something
got
else?
you on the hook. Here's another one. Yeah, this one was 3D printed. They were restoring another post-World War II airplane, a piston airplane, and we created that so that they could actually dry fit that part to make sure it worked and make sure it was correct and what they wanted. And then they took the data that we had created and went out and had that part CNC'd. So
Okay.
you can go a couple of different ways with the data that we create and gather.
Yeah. So clearly you had an obsolete part. Those two parts are from World War II aircraft. All right.
That's correct.
And they
Yeah.
were scanned and then they were 3D printed.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So are you going to tell us what they are, or we just have to guess?
Sure. The first one was a flap hanger from F4U Corsair, and it broke, and so we obviously needed to have that replaced. And then the second part is from a P-28, and wonder if any of your people know what a P-28 is. And I won't keep me in too much suspense. P-28 is a twin Mustang, and that was being refurbished down here in Douglas, Georgia. And again, what we needed to do is have it dry fitted to make sure that all the bolt holes aligned and everything else worked. And then they went out and fabricated it, obviously, through a CNC process.
I bet that aircraft is a screamer. My favorite aircraft in the whole world is the P-38, so a P-28, yes. Huh? I bet that must be a screamer. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I think it was up at Oshkosh last year, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's made some of the air show circuits.
Okay, interesting. Now, I think we have a picture of the results of some of the scanning here after that. It's a little video here, but this is, I guess, the results of some of your scanning that you do of parts here, right?
Correct. And that component is actually the part that attaches the winglet to the end of the wing.
Oh, okay. I can see that. All right. Okay. Very interesting. Actually, if people wanted to see more of this, there's some of these on your website as well, right?
Yes, there are 10 samples on there, and they're all 3D PDFs that were generated out of SolidWorks once we had the 3D model fully created. Okay.
Well, really, that's really very interesting. And so those 3D models then would potentially, those are high accuracy, right? Can you talk to us about the accuracy? I don't think we answered one of Mark Christian Reichel's earlier questions. He was asking about the accuracy, of that earlier. Can you talk to us a little bit about the accuracy of what you're doing?
Yes, just about everything we do is sub-millimeter. And again, it depends on what the client's requirements are as to what piece of laser scanning equipment we use. Some are more accurate, some are faster. So you always are giving up one versus the other. If you want the accuracy, it takes a little longer. If you want the speed, then your accuracy suffers a little bit. So again, scope of work is very, very important. Everybody goes, "Can you give me a rough idea?" And I go, yeah, I can, but scope of work, a very detailed scope of work, will nail it down, and I'll get you a good quotation that will be a firm fixed price.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Good. All right. Hey, we got a couple of other questions that have come in. Looks like Mark has another question here. He says, for damage on a fuselage, I would think that this is great for engineering design or doubler design for manufacturing out to the machine shop or for compound curves. Do you have any comments on that as far as like being able to design compound curves, things like that?
Absolutely. We were called here not too long ago, and I think the engineers got around the problem, but it was a Falcon, and it was one of the panels under the main wing, and it was towards the lead edge of the wing. It had suffered some corrosion, so once they had done the chem mill, there was a number of different compound curves that they were really concerned about. First of all, it was about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches between the webs. And then the thickness of the component went from kind of skinny to a little thicker, and it had a very specific curve to it. So you're absolutely correct. In those scenarios, it helps tremendously and cuts down on the amount of time and engineering design and reconfiguration that you might potentially need. because we can get those areas very precisely.
Yeah, I want to just come back to sort of our topic of the broadcast. It's recovery in aviation, and one of the whole reasons that we're doing this is we're trying to help people understand ways in their business that they can either increase revenue or they can cut costs. And how we can survive in an economic time where there's an economic downturn in aviation. And I hear you again talking about things that can be done here to be able to reduce time or to be able to cut cost. By using the scanning, kind of activities, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we had one more. We went up to HACO here in Greensboro, North Carolina at the beginning of the year. And there was an airline that had acquired another aircraft from a different company. And when somebody was trying to remount an engine, there was a dent that had incurred in the secondary portion of the cantilever pylon. And we went in, and they had actually sent from Germany over and back a big no-go gauge, if you will, that cost about $100,000 just in shipping. Well, we came in, and in about an hour and a half, once we got all set up and found the data that we needed from the manufacturer, gave them more information and accurate information than they would have gotten using that gauge for about $25,000. That's total shipping, per diem, car rental, everything.
Big impact, really big impact.
We gave them the report that day.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Hey, listen, I know this really isn't a question for you, but I'm going to throw it up because I want to give a shout out to the guy who was on our show last week. But I have a question from a LinkedIn user here. It says, what's the cost of a 3D printed part compared to conventional manufacturing? And I'm not expecting you to answer that, but unless you had some information. I mean, do you have any information which speaks to that at all, or Mike?
In generalities, it all depends on the complexity of the part. And again, basically, we have strategic partners that will do the 3D printing, but it's all about machine time. Once of course, you have to create the 3D solid image and then get it to them. But it's really about machine time and the cost of the material to create that part. So specifics.
The reason I wanted to throw this up is because we had a little bit of an internet problem last week, and a little bit of the broadcast last week was broken up. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Ron Robinson of 3D Printing Technology. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the comments here to him. And if someone has specifics where they want to learn about the cost of 3D printing, they can go back and talk to him. He was on our show last week. But so that's why I wanted to kind of throw that one up. And just for those of you that are watching today, I'll put a link out there, back out to him. And anyway, Mike, there's just so many areas it looks like where there's opportunities to be able to reduce cost. And let me ask you this, is that in a difficult time in our economy right now, it looks like you're in 3 different sectors. It looks like you're in business aviation, commercial aviation, you're in MROs, and you're also, focused on military and defense, because you talked about some C-130, kind of activity. Is there any particular place that you're positioning yourself maybe right now? Is there any area that looks more lucrative than others right now at this point?
We're SDVOSB's service disabled veteran-owned small business, but it's tough to get in and work with the military. We have done some jobs with primes, and so we come in as subprime or the subcontractors. And there's a tremendous amount of work with the military because a lot of these aircraft are legacy aircraft. There's no 3D prints for it. Real quick, there was a call from Georgia Tech here about a year and a half ago where they were looking to do some work on a E3 out at Tinker, and we gave them a proposal, but just kind of tough to break into that market unless you're specifically working with the prime. So we really do concentrate, and it's a lot easier, I feel, at this point to work with the commercial MROs and individual operators.
Yeah, business and commercial. I mean, obviously, every one of them out there are going to be looking for ways to be able to reduce cost right now, and so
absolutely, and
absolutely.
The airlines, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just think you have a tremendous opportunity here. Hey, I got another question that's coming from somebody here. It's from an Andre Mahalik. And he says, can you perform maintenance-based scanning to provide models for maintenance trainers? This is about the availability of scanning in confined spaces. The target is a virtual maintenance trainer. So I think he's asking about, can you provide digital models that might be able to be used for maintenance training? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And again, as I'd stated earlier, the data that we collect is the basis for augmented and virtual reality, mixed reality. So we can absolutely do that. But again, there's a number of companies out there that have a huge military contracts for doing exactly that, providing training scenarios. And it's an extremely useful tool. And again, I keep batting around that 30%, but they have shown that 35% increase in awareness and skill can be had by using augmented and virtual reality, which is the data that they need. If they don't use 3D laser scanning, laser mapping, and solid models, they have to create the solid models themselves, which can be very arduous. So absolutely correct and right at spot on.
Yeah, very good. All right. Andre, thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. It's really great when we have people from all over the world that really join us because, this is a time when digital, we can reach people everywhere around the world. And it's just amazing, that we can get onto social media and on a LinkedIn broadcast like this, and we can help people. I mean, people can come and ask a guy like you questions, that you wouldn't normally have access to. And so it's just really amazing that we have the opportunity to be able to do that. Hey, Mike, go ahead, Mike.
If you don't mind, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and allow Laser Aviation to participate in such an important presentation and series of presentations that you have created and are presenting. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thanks a lot. Hey, one of the things I like to do on our broadcasts is that when we have people watching and they're asking themselves, what am I going to do in my business? I need some tips. I need some ideas. I need to think about what to do next. All right. You're a CEO of a company, a small business. Could you have any recommendations to people? Is that during a difficult economic time, what should people be doing, to lean forward and to be able to be successful during this time?
I think the most important thing, and I've heard it from many, many CEOs and other people that have been successful, don't give up on your dreams. Sometimes
Mark Schultz here with Larry Little. Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Hey, Mark. Good to be with you again this morning.
What is that all about?
Great. We are here with another edition of Recovery and Aviation. It's a great morning, Larry. Where in the world are you?
I have something. We have an audio feed coming in from somewhere else. I'm not sure where that's coming in from.
It's a beautiful sunny morning here. It's going to be a great day. But hey, excited to talk to you today. Hey, Mark, I just want to say that little video that you showed at the start.
I'm not sure where that's coming from.
I'm kind of excited.
I don't know how to get rid of it.
Sensation.
Yeah, we are going to have a good discussion here.
On your side,
Laser Aviation with us today, and we'll introduce him in a minute. But I wanted to tell everybody real quick is that this is actually
I'm still here.
And video playing on your computer right now, by chance?
Go ahead and join us, and if you'd help me out by sharing this broadcast, I would really appreciate it. So,
I apologize.
It's
It was
okay.
my LinkedIn connection, so my fault.
No, we're
My
good.
bad.
It's okay. It's all right. We got it. We got rid of it, and got a few things. So we were trying to focus on what do people have to do to be able to survive in this time. And you said, hey, don't give up on your dreams. And then you had a couple of other thoughts you were going to share with us.
Yeah, and there are a number of avenues. I think, again, one of the biggest things that I try to do to others, especially a lot of the younger people, is show them, educate them, tell them that about aviation and what a great opportunity is to get into the industry. I used to fly, or I'm still a member of the Civil Air Patrol, and we used to do orientation flights. And I think that's a great way to start telling people and showing people. Unfortunately, it's taken me about 15, 16 years to get into and to a point where I am at this point. So it's a struggle. It's a haul, but don't give up. It's well worth the effort and the sacrifice that somebody might have to make in order to fulfill your dreams.
All right, Mike, are you a pilot?
I am.
Oh, okay, great, excellent. So how long have you been a pilot now?
I got my private pilot's license in Kalamazoo, Michigan in 1977. When I joined the Civil Air Patrol out in Tucson, Arizona, I had about 700 hours, and thank God and thank the U.S. Air Force, probably about 90% of my flying time at 1,700 hours now, and an instrument certificate. It was time well spent, and sometimes it was a struggle, but again, well worth the effort. also a mission pilot, check pilot, and mission pilot examiner. So just a great opportunity, and some of the things that I've had the opportunity to see through the Civil Air Patrol, just amazing opportunities. So the young people trying to get into aviation, that's another opportunity. The ROTC programs at schools are great opportunities. So I know a lot of people sometimes kind of go, "Oh, the military poo-poo," but I'll tell you what, it helped me with my education, and here I am today because of it.
Awesome. That's great. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate you sharing that with us. For those of us that have been in aviation all of our lives, I tell people that it's not just a passion, it's an obsession. We can't really get out of it, is what it is,
It's in our blood.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And so, hey, listen, we'll kind of wrap things up here. And I really, really appreciate you taking time to come in and be with us today. Hey, if people want to reach out to you and they want to get some more information about this digital scanning or this technology, how can they get in touch with you? LinkedIn, is that the best way, or?
LinkedIn's a great way, through the website, mhm@laseraviation.com is my email. So,
Okay.
Larry, I appreciate that. Sorry for the little glitch on my end.
All right, that's okay.
We're always ready and able.
Awesome. Looks like we have your email up on the screen. So if anybody wants to reach out to Mike Mullet, you can reach out to him. He's CEO of Laser Aviation. You can reach out to him at this email address right down there, mhm@laseraviation.com. If you want to learn more about our broadcasts in recovery and aviation, you can reach out to me, Mark Schultz, at #digitalaircraft or at my email address on the screen. And the other thing I want to remind you is that at the beginning of the program, I told you is that we are trying to focus on recovery in aviation. Look, Mike is a good example of a long history in aviation. And, I am passionate about aviation. I am obsessed with aviation. And we are convinced that leaders in aviation can lean forward and create recovery by us charging hard into recovery and looking for ways to save money and create new revenue. And so we are having this recovery in aviation broadcast. We've been doing it for 3 months now, and we've had a tremendous amount of success. We've had so many people watch. We've had tens of thousands of people watch these broadcasts at this point in time. And we've decided to do a virtual conference in August, and it's August 25th, 26th, and 27th. And we're going to have over 50 different companies and leaders do interviews like this. And we expect to have over 10,000 people that will participate in that. And I wanted to invite all of you to join in with us and be part of that, because we are convinced that we can be part of recovery in aviation by enthusiastically charging forward. And it's evidenced by great guys like Mike and great companies like, Laser Aviation that are out there providing ways for us to be able to cut costs and to be able to find new places for revenue. And so, Mike, I just wish you the best, and I want to thank you for joining us on the broadcast today.
I can't thank you enough, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Hey, listen, I close all my broadcasts with everybody, and I say fair winds and following seas to you, and I wish you the best, and I want you to have a great day. Thanks for joining us today, and watch for our next broadcast. We usually do them on Wednesdays and Fridays. Thanks, everybody. Bye.